I've been plagued by depressive bouts of lethargy and sleepless nights, leading to the wee AM hours being a rich treasure trove of my present-day paranoid nightmares. Perilous fantasy adventures alongside heroes and loved ones of my past, or hopeful dreams of the future Modest Mouse concerts I'll attend with all my friends that I've yet to meet. But then it's all wiped away from my mind the moment light breaks through to my eyes and my ears are filled with the sound of mechanical birds. That moment encapsulates the album's title's impact on me. An eraser in a maze. The maze is a world of dreams that an eraser scrubs away the moment of its perception. No matter how many times I come back to the thoughts in that dream maze, my spot is lost. My path is erased, and I must start over in a new maze if I choose to sleep, or embrace reality and move forward, losing that thought, that part of my imagination, forever. It's a troubling contradiction, chasing a moment that has gone beyond the echoes of our memories. For Isaac Brock, there's a daydreamer who sleep talks musical genius, and if you catch these dreams with him at the right moment, it is an interdimensional experience like no other. This album is no exception, and is in fact the very state of duality between subconscious inspiration versus the labor and limitation of translating said dreams to an album, and the context of reality versus what you see listening to this album in the void of a fresh mind. TV Trope says your mileage may vary when it comes to interpretation of art, much like how if Modest Mouse was your Maps app, only the destinations would be marked, and it's up to you on how you get there. With how technology has changed, we're presented with best routes. The path is drawn for us by algorithms, and much the same way popular opinion on sites like Lyric Genius define meaning of what songs mean, depriving us of our own independent thought on how to navigate via a naked map. I think I know my geography pretty damn. Well, do ya? Over the course of being a Modest Mouse fan, the best moments for me have been the most fresh listening experiences possible. And that's how I've learned to navigate, by adventuring and getting lost. The wonders of the world are just a few steps away to find at your own pace. And then every landmark and dead end becomes familiar details, exactly as they seem day in and day out, until change happens and you're confronted with your habits being broken. If you approach travel and listening to Modest Mouse with independent open-mindedness and the flexibility to inevitable change, it'll be great. If you follow a machine, or well-intentioned but bad advice, you might not have much of a breakthrough. So, if you're a first-time Modest Mouse listener, welcome. Go ahead and mute this review and go listen to An Eraser in a Maze, or any Modest Mouse album, right now. Don't turn this book upside down, because the answer key, while just out of sight, will change how you view this album forever. If you know the path in and out of the maze, you'll stick to that and not find the potential hidden treasures along the way. If you haven't listened to Modest Mouse after a long time not listening, just drive straight into An Eraser in a Maze, and the same message goes for you. If you have already journeyed with this album, I'll show you the path that myself and fellow fans here at the Lonesome Crowded Cast have taken. But will you promise me this, my friend, that you'll draw your own conclusions? For many Modest Mouse fans, what defines the band currently is the absence of its founding members as much as Isaac Brock's presence on this lifelong journey. Maps charted and paths traced countless times over, but even as the eraser of time weathers away at the graphite of the band's footsteps and tire tracks, the writing still remains, as does the spirit of Jeremiah Green, and all those who have come and gone from Modest Mouse on this album. I really didn't want to feel like Jeremiah was being replaced by a person, Isaac Brock said with Ryan Reed of Paste magazine. And by no means has Jeremiah Green been replaced on this album or at any point in the band's history. In good news for people who love bad news, his recorded absence is supplemented by his contributions to the percussion writing and programming for many of that album's tracks, something he achieves again, this time posthumously, on tracks like Absolutely Necessary Never, via being a ghostly muse. Those in Modest Mouse on drums, like Damon Cox, Benjamin Weichel, and Janet Weiss, bring to the table a special element that rarely leaves this album sounding unlike a Modest Mouse album. The mournful synchronous thumping drums on Third Side of the Moon, played by Damon Cox and Ben Mozzarella, are similar to how Jeremiah Green would drum alongside on stage in a drum kit duet. The digital drums on Remember Yourself are programmed with the same special touch and care Jeremiah shared with acoustic drums. While the walls to this maze may feel twisted and unfamiliar to those who are painfully aware of Jeremiah's absence, as one of the chief architects of this maze, we call Modest Mouse, everyone aboard clearly understands the assignment left for them, and has carefully built this album with it in mind. These themes of absence and grief go hand in hand with the concept of dreams, given that in your dreams you may see lost loved ones. Life's a Dream is one of my favorite tracks off this record for this reason. A beautiful tribute to Sam Jane opens this track and was one of Modest Mouse's most psychedelic grooves to date. On first listen, I felt like I was in the dreamscape of The Cure's Disintegration. Walking again through Toby Fox's Field of Hopes and Dreams. Gone past the porch to have a walk, and I couldn't stop when the world was at large. This song encapsulates the everyday feeling of things coming to be and repeating in the waking moments. A dead-end job you wake up to, drive back home to, and sleep to wake up to. Much how the cycles of the song repeat themselves. But ideally in your dreams, you'd be with the people you love and the places you dream of being and going to instead, right? That's the sort of atmosphere Modest Mouse takes you into with this, the in-between moments of waking and sleeping. The music video, directed by Isaac Brock with co-direction from Zach Storer and Chris Rabb himself, grounds this sensation in reality with vignettes of the Modest Mouse extended family frolicking while beekeeper Isaac smokes us out to put us back into our dream hives. The only reason I could ever view this song with a negative light is due to the fact I've probably listened to it more than anyone outside the band with a over 90-minute interview I did with co-director Zach Storer. The hours of rewatching that video over and over and over again, hearing that song played at 3 times speed, finding the right clip for the video was dizzying, hectic, and not my most recommended way to listen to a very serene song. However, that repetitive loop does not lose its charm, much in the same way we are quite hooked on sleeping. If you find that golden sheep to count to help you fall asleep, stick with it. And for Modest Mouse fans, new and old, this groovy track could be it. My favorite lyric off this song is "Never when you sleep are you alone." Remember Yourself has been one of my favorites off this album since I heard it live, and I really do enjoy how much the song sounds quite unique from both the album and live performance perspectives. It's a quieter, gentler lullaby of a song that takes the opportunity to carry over some of the digital instruments for the previous track, Pickin' Dragon's Pockets, or what it sounds like to be, and uses them beautifully in this quiet, sincere way. Whereas the live version so far doesn't spoil the album's unique sound by having a unique twist you'll love live. Russell and Simon are really bringing something special to this song, as well as one of my other earlier heard live favorites, Dog Bed in Heaven. Dog Bed, following Third Side of the Moon, on the album is very much cementing this feeling of the song being a funeral dirge. Isaac's vocals, I notice, have this very raw quality to it, especially since at one point his singing sounds like it peaks with the volume around after 2 minutes in. Which he almost alludes to quite literally in the next song on the same track, Give It a Skeleton. The sudden transition seems very difficult to pull off live, but it does great live. And it is done even more sharply on the album version than it is live, like suddenly waking up from a dream, or like a sudden cut during a film. The song is a Russell Higbee joint, and is one I cannot wait to talk to him more about in depth. Third Side of the Moon is definitely one of the most painfully sad Modest Mouse songs, and I feel it's a difficult song to explore due to the very personal stories told in it, much like the song Ansel from Strangers to Ourselves. Wherein Life's a Dream has Sam Jane's A Better Thing being sampled quite beautifully and serenely, the recounting of the discovery of Sam Jane being frozen in his car failed to feel as literal as it is bluntly put, until I process the hair-raising sensation of dread that's accompanied by what sounds like a cello bow strung across a guitar in this dragging horror movie sound. Life is filled with these all-too-real, horrific things that happen to the very real people you care about, and it just makes this so goddamn tough to listen to if you're not in the right headspace for it. Considering how the song Ansel from Strangers to Ourselves also speaks very bluntly through the poetic lyrics about someone's passing the last time Isaac ever saw them, but in a much different way musically, is just tough to process both ways. An uncaring sun and the unknown side of a familiar frozen moon. Attention and a remembrance are active efforts that this song explores in a way more broadly than just death, as the song is also about those who are gone. The perception of someone in your mind melts away with time, leaving you with unfamiliar recollections of specific details like eye color, that in your imagination become bizarre and unrealistic, like bleen or glue. To me, the front of this album and its colored version go hand in hand with this song's lyrics. The tapestry of symbolism starts to really solidify itself here. The tarot card of the moon represents the subconscious mind, illusions, and hidden fears. The Gnostic false god Yaldabaoth is one with the body of a snake and the head of a sun, ducking its head out of sight of the illusion shining down upon it, hiding from the truth, from those who perceive it. The moment you see the truth, it cannot be unseen, burned into our optic nerve. Yet that sting fades with time cooling back to darkness. Isaac sings mournfully of what he can no longer see, but would know if he looked at a photograph. But yet, it's all another depiction of, and not the actual real thing. You'll never see the true color of someone's eyes unless you are able to make eye contact with them in the right moment, underneath the right lighting. And that moment too will pass. A moment you'll only have so few chances to experience with people during the set amount of heartbeats you have left. Interlude is a very pretty excerpt of the dreamy, mournful keys from Third Side, and since release has been my phone's ringtone. No notes. Perfect song. Best one off the album. Honestly, I would love to hear those keys do a solo piece that expands upon the dreamy soundscapes visited in that song. Interlude glitches out into this beautifully playful way, into I Can't Talk Right Now, which feels like a modern-day reprise of Long Distance Struck in a much sweeter way. The vocals are a little hard for me to hear until the second half, unless I'm listening closely or using headphones. I feel like I may have missed some of the smaller details in my initial listen since I wasn't on headphones. Like the charms on Life's a Dream. They're very quiet at first, depending on how you're listening to them. If I'm stuck on hold with someone, this would be my top choice of songs to listen to. Suzy Shen is also a welcome addition to the Modest Mouse vocal soundscape. Her soft singing tones harmonize nicely with Isaac's, much in the same way you'd hear on a song like Sleepwalkin'. As it slowly trickles back to our dreamy landscape of silence, we are jolted awake by one of the new Modest Mouse anthems. Speak and Spell, or Not, is very, very good. It has a bit of trailer trash mixed in with Miss the Black Cadillacs. That's my version of Miss the Boat that I sing at the same time as Black Cadillacs. Why did I write it as Miss the Black Cadillacs in my script? I never will find out. That and Impossible Sundays feel like the most old school of this album. Life is fucking awesome, and I know that it is because I'm living it and listening to a timeless yet new Modest Mouse song. The clever use of baggage as a metaphor for emotional baggage I find to be very clever. Once again, we have Keith Carmen on steel guitar, giving the song a unique twang that you could show to your country music friends with delight, despite the song's melancholic bends and very self-reflective lyrics. Y'all are going to hear a lot of singing along to whenever you attend your next Modest Mouse concert. Speaking of Keith Carmen and emotional catharsis, our next song is Knocked Down by the Waves. I sing this often to myself to repress cringe memories of me being drunk off my ass, drowning in the high tide on a cold, starlit Australian beach. My friend Nat said it was a huge, rich, Disco Elysium vibe. That main character from that video game is a bit of a washed-up amnesiac detective. Despite how much Isaac has grown emotionally speaking, songs like these really help us delve into our low points without feeling like you're being walked all over. Within the lyrics lies a hopeful defiance that even if you're knocked down by forces of life that are uncontrollable, at the end of it all, it's still you. Partly due to the song's beachy vibes, I wish I could hear it alongside Surfin' Your Couch. But that's not how this record played out. No, is it? Absolutely Necessary Never sounds like a very The Cure mood, especially at the beginning with how it opens up with those keys. Killing one's own shadow and abandoning dreams makes this feel very connected to Third Side, Impossible Sundays, and Life's a Dream. This is a bit harder to parse lyrically in terms of themes, and even more so in terms of this vampiric auto-cannibalistic relationship Isaac has with his own shadow. This track feels the most open-ended on what it could mean to me, and is something I want to give more thought to when I revisit this album for the podcast. The alt versions given as thanks to Ice Cream Party listeners is very fun. Much less produced, but still holds tight to that 80s city pop vibe that this song has in droves. Jeremiah Green also has a drum programming credit on this song, which, if you're familiar with his drumming style, you can definitely hear within the echoes of the cyberpunk vibe. While this is an album review, this podcast does cover the live concert experience of seeing Modest Mouse, so it's worth talking about how the new album plays a part in the current concert lineup. There are some songs off this record that have been absent during live performances so far, to my theorizing knowledge, due to being songs by producers and Isaac rather than the current Modest Mouse live lineup, who, I would say, and the band would say, is its current form. We did see some songs on this album debut earlier than the album when it was played live, partly due to those songs being already heavily worked on by those current touring with Modest Mouse, who are the band. In time, we'll see what songs from the album get played live versus the ones who don't, which may give further context to which songs the band as a whole are most fond of. Given that the money's been paid and the tracks are finished and complete, it's no use putting off their release. So their presence on this album makes sense, logistically. But certain songs to me feel more like toppings on a sundae than it does the main ice cream body of this album. From my perception, these topping tracks are typically where it'll sound the roughest between track transitions. Meanwhile, the rest of the album has a strong intentionality of the moments in between, with dreamy creative transitions easing you from one track to the other, which is always a delight when doing a full album listen. And beyond recency bias, this album rivals all other Modest Mouse albums to this degree, despite some tracks not being exactly coherent with others, theming-wise or in between each track. While sharing a consistent tonal theme on songs worked with by the band's touring lineup, the album musically strays to the point of being a bit more of a collage, more than other albums when said members are absent, with Song About Nothing in particular being a quite jarring song about nothing. Being a mosh pit inciting jam I could easily work out to, but really having nothing to say beyond the immense exasperation one might feel from a whole lot of nothing. At least, I could see it becoming something fun to riff off on and evolve into a hardcore jam on stage. Of all the topping tracks off this album, I think this one has the most potential in terms of its live performance adaptability. If you find the air freshener based off of this next song at your next Modest Mouse concert, it not only smells great, but carries that Modest Mouse beautiful decay vibe. Rotten Fruit is very much lyrically and aesthetically a Modest Mouse song, but it also feels like the guitar loops are sampled from tracks off of Lonesome Crowded West to appeal to fans who want to hear that old sound. Given Charli XCX collaborator Justin Rayson's song writing credit alongside his team, this track feels like the cameo from a real-life DJ, Salvatore Ganacci, the fighting game Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. If you aren't with that vibe, it feels strange, but if you dig it, it fits right in and how it's adapted and performed. Personally, I don't really understand why it's just Justin Rayson singing instead of one of the members of the band who all currently sing on every new song on stage when there's backing vocals. But if performed live, I could easily hear Simon doing this line that Justin Rayson sings on the track. If you listen to this song in a vacuum, I think you might really like it, as a lot of people who went to the album listening party with me at Del Bravo Records in San Antonio did. But due to context, the Rotten Fruit has its flavor permanently altered in much the same way cilantro tastes more like soap to you if you are told other people taste soap when eating it. Don't let it keep it from being something you like, though. I'm not here to yuck your yum. If you like the taste of rotten fruit, keep eating. Similar things can be said about Pekin Dragon's Pockets, at least in the lyrical themes, but perhaps much more suited for this album with context and musical evolution. What I will say positively is that Pekin Dragon's Pockets is one of the boldest Modest Mouse album openers ever. Beginning the album on what is such a strongly unique Modest Mouse sound in such a loud, grandiose way, and having these back and forth quiet to boisterous moments is brilliant. The guitars ramping up at the very beginning kind of sounds like how the band does right before they start playing a song live. It begins to ramp up like an engine, bringing that live performance atmosphere right to your ears before snapping into the ethereal elements that are being introduced with the layering, then finally taking off before snapping back to the gentle back and forth. It's a great way to ease people into this album that will be balancing the heavier sound with heavier themes. The minor key of this opening ramp gets the album feeling mournful as it rockets from the gallery of your past memories into the present moment. My first impression of this song was that it sounded kind of like a fantasy role-playing video game with its digital instruments, almost as if parts of the song could be reimagined with different instruments to be the theme of a town you frequent, like a reoccurring leitmotif. And I think the digital sounds used in this album give it a very unique identity amongst the Modest Mouse discography, that this song in particular sets up pretty well, moving forward with other tracks on this album. I was ready to, then and there, declare it one of my favorite Modest Mouse songs upon that first listen. And depending on your journey, it may be one of your favorite Modest Mouse songs even still, especially if you had a really great positive first listening experience to it. Since Isaac has yet to give us much lyrical analysis on the song, minus some of the interviews he's done, I find myself wondering how the song was built, how the song evolved into being one of the album openers and tone setters that it is for an Eraser in a Maze, considering it has origins as far back as 2016. The heavier lyrics, a framed suicide note, a failed trip to Auckland, haunt me with eerie coincidence to my own life. Though in a recent interview with Ever Black podcast, Isaac had a lot more pleasant reasons not to emigrate to Aotearoa NZ, being the birth of his kids. Isaac often writes filler lyrics that sound fun and work well, but nothing on this album feels unintentionally written. So given that my own timeline and this song's existence both coincide but also don't match up in some ways, leaves me feeling less enthused than my initial listen and more confused and uneasy. But that's just for personal reasons. If anything, it makes me feel even more connected to this song, but in a very melancholic way. And it would be a disservice to those jaded about the AI music video not to mention it in my review, especially if it spoiled some of the perception of this song. Cypress Jones, while being a talent in the realm of handcrafted props, incorporated some very poor quality generative AI tools on the music video for Pickin' Dragon's Pockets. A lot has been said on this already by the comment sections of YouTube, Reddit, and beyond, but the damage has been done. It's partly why I took a break from my content flow since the music videos drop. I didn't want to associate my own work with generative AI, and I don't use those tools in my own work, even if it means not sounding as good as everyone else. Maybe a little bit more authentic. Who knows? At least at the end of the day, this further puts my Yaldabaoth theory into validation that this is indeed, in some ways, a fake Modest Moise. If it's indeed the Gnostic false god on the album cover, how that snake in the music videos generated to the album's presentation a disservice. Because it's not really a snake, is it? If you see that face of God, it's whatever you perceive it to be, right? So, you know. When you think it's a snake, it's a snake. But when you look at the sun, what do you actually see? IMO, the visualizer for the song, was good enough, and does a fine job of activating your imagination to what's going on with the song. Credit where it is due, though. There are some elements of this music video, like the handcrafted bits that are actually present, and the wacky out-of-this-world cinematography that Cypress Jones pulls off, that had they been able to be the main focus, and without any of the generation behind it, I think it would have made a much more enjoyable experience. Going further into the visual presentation of this review, the art of Murphy Phelan, who I was lucky enough to interview for the podcast, gives home to a wide color variety of vinyls you can have your pick from. Blue, green, black, All these colors I can't remember. The outside shows this album's theme of light-dark duality, with the strong contrasting black and white, to moving inward, a painting of a beautiful spread of moths and rainbows. In particular, I feel the moths are a very apt ambassador of this album's themes of the in-between moments of sleep and waking, between dreams and reality. The lyric sheet inside gives further much ado credit to this album's musicians, alongside giving some context to the songs like Life's a Dream and Stoner Party. For the die-hard Modest Mouse fan, this is a definite need for the physical release. Digital, you might miss out on some of the goodies. Look How Far got me in a bit of trouble when I talked about it on Facebook. When I said the lyrics stupid dumb were not very creative, but how it connects to Stoner Party, you know what? Vibe, fun, I like it, all's forgiven. Stoner Party, knowing the context that it's a motto Jeremiah Green would chant, is both really cute and bittersweet, and gives life to the legend who some Modest Mouse fans never got to meet or really know. When JG passed, I had hoped in whatever next life existed, he and the person who introduced me to Modest Mouse would get to make some cool music together. Somehow. And knowing this was part of his sense of humor, I feel like Emmy and Jeremiah would get along swimmingly. Look How Far takes the same approach with its lyrics by commenting in a very jovial way on how awfully built that this society is by people, likely falsely claiming to be descended from kings and czars. Part of me feels that some of the song is commentating on how certain fans wished Modest Mouse had it like they used to, and that Modest Mouse of the past is currently dug up and chiseled into something else. But unlike the triumphs of ancient peoples being attributed to aliens or their colonizers, something that I know for sure is that it is indeed Modest Mouse making this music, and indeed Isaac's writing style. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of using words like crazy or stupid in my own vocabulary, but they're aptly put where used on this album. If throwing a rock at the powers that be was all that needed to be done to take it down, it'd be a knee slapper for the history books. Something in me is also very hopeful for more humorous Modest Mouse writing in the future. Surfing your couch, please get some digital streaming. Check out the episode if you want my further digital analysis on that song. Impossible Some Days remains the most bittersweet, beautiful track that keeps me crying consistently on every listen. If you had to make me pick a favorite track, this could be it. After the emotional roller coaster we have just gone on, as an ending track, it may be one of the best closers on any Modest Mouse album so far. It ties in all previously visited themes on this album while simultaneously being encouraging and uplifting in this melancholic tone. Hatsune Miku makes a surprise appearance, singing through 3 harmonizing guitar Vocaloid chord guitar pedals as she strums my heartstrings, flooding my tear ducts in the same way you laugh when your funny bone is hit. Isaac Brock probably wasn't out to make me specifically sob, but it hits me like a truck in the same way the Pig and Dragon's Pockets Auckland line does. For me, my heart often flashes imagery of Pochita, the Chainsaw Devil, whenever I hear this Miku pedal. The story of Chainsaw Man begins with Pochita sacrificing his life for his human partner, Denji, in exchange for becoming his heart and giving him the abilities of the Chainsaw Devil. Pochita's contract with Denji is this: I want you to show me your dreams. While the anime is still ongoing, the comic has recently reached its conclusion, simultaneously with this album's release, harmonizing together with a message loud and clear. No matter how dark, no matter how dire, may your heart be a perpetual motion machine, and you see to it that all your dreams come true. I'll speak on Chainsaw Man in the future, but to Modest Mouse. If you're listening, I think you'll really like Chainsaw Man. The knowledge that the track is featuring the Japanimation pedal means my impossible dream of getting Modest Mouse featured on an anime opening or ending theme is still alive. This chorus of angels pays eulogy to those lost dreams that won't be forgotten if you keep making an effort. Impossible Some Days is a message to never give up on your dreams. You think being a rock star, or an astronaut, or a Modest Mouse music video director is impossible? Don't just keep dreaming, you can make it happen. An Eraser in a Maze has some of the highest play front to back on repeat energy of all of the Modest Mouse discography, despite being a very strong statement on the inevitability of change, and the acknowledgement of cycles that repeat but can be broken. And Ouroboros will stop being infinite when the snake stops eating its own tail. So regardless, if you pick and choose tracks off this album to add into your playlists, or drop off this album in the middle of it, even if you listen to one track at all on this album, An Eraser in a Maze has something great to offer you. If An Eraser in a Maze isn't your cup of tea, hang tight. With completed tracks that didn't make it on this album slated for what's to come next, the tentatively titled Shadows in the Shade will be the next upcoming Modest Mouse album. Dreams, or a place where everything and anything can be real, where lost loved ones and impossible entities can visit you. Life's a Dream, Third Side, Interlude, I Can't Talk Right Now, Impossible Some Days, all explore the precipice of imagination and reality, challenging or affirming the listener's perception of what sleep versus the waking world is. Certainly, in many ways, a Modest Mouse album is much like a Rorschach inkblot test. But to me in particular, I do feel in some way, once you are told about what something means or is, that perception is altered. Despite changes to this reality, I still remain quite a huge fan of the album. Though it is unlikely to change your opinion, this alongside every Modest Mouse release, for me, gets a 10 out of 10. It is S tier on my ranking alongside every other Modest Mouse track, simply to trick the algorithm, which cannot feel, or think, or perceive into falling whim to my ulterior motive of Modest Mouse album score domination. And now a little bit of off-script conclusions and more. For me, this album, unless you go into it completely blind, has stuff about it that makes you see it differently, much in the way dream interpretation can be. If someone hears your dreams and tells you what it means, it's something completely different. I had beforehand read a physics theory. It says past, present, and future coexist, and that's the best lens for an eraser in a maze, which feels like every era of Modest Mouse happening at once, guided by Isaac Brooks, blah, blah, blah. That little statement that's on the website, it would make me see it completely differently. Unfortunately, that's reality. The whole process of the hype cycle, the production, the pre-production, release, and everything, like people reviewing it, my own listens to it, all of that changes the original listening experience. So it leads me to feeling differently on it every time I do listen to it. And that's the inevitable growth of it all. Does Modest Mouse want you to have a fresh listening lens as possible? Yes, but it also acknowledges your expectations, which is why it tells you past, present, and future coexist. Block theory is presented to you. I feel like a lot of people see Modest Mouse as this monolith that is unchanging in some ways. This perception of the past that they want to carry into the future and don't want to be along for this present ride, this change that's happened with the band. But in a way, I think that's what makes this band what it is now, is that change. But also being present with the past and the future, all simultaneously. I love this album, genuinely. I think, though, a lot of my stress and stuff has come from the perception of, working on it in some sense with this review and covering things for the podcast and whatnot. which I'm happy to have done so far, but it's nice to be able to listen to Modest Mouse and it not be work, which is something that Isaac Brock really intended to have done with this album. And I think this is fun for me. I think podcasting is fun for me, and I love talking about Modest Mouse, which thank you all for your grace and presence so far, for letting me review this album at my pace and release it when it was the right time. And also, thank you for listening to the Lonesome Crowded Cast. And thank you for watching my dream. So, what conclusions have you come up to when listening to this album? How did you get out of the maze? And how do you find yourself despite your path being erased behind you? For me, this was my journey with the album, but I want to hear yours. Has this album ascended the world of your dreams? How has listening to it changed how you navigate the maze of life and dreams? My extended listening recommendations? Check out the Tim Fullen composed soundtrack to the unreleased game Time Tracks. Similar to this album, past, present, future, all can change in the blink of an eye. For anime watching experiences that you may be pleasantly surprised to feel the Modest Mouse core inside of, especially of this era of Modest Mouse, I do recommend checking out Chainsaw Man, Takapi's Original Sin, and ReZero. I would say all those are quite grim, so if you're looking for a little bit of a more optimistic point of view, check out Deltarune and Undertale. I cannot recommend those games enough.